Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to another episode of the F1 Podcast. The only F1 podcast in the entirety of the world. There may be posers. There may be other people who think they have an F1 podcast. But we are the F1 podcast.
The F1 podcast.
Other F1 podcasts are available. But yes, we're basically a place where we chat F1 for a while.
Yep.
So we're probably going to talk about the Abu Dhabi GP briefly. We're obviously going to be answering Jonty's question, reacting to the news of Yuki Tsunoda. We'll give our thoughts on that. And also, Nick Cranky Yankee, obviously he always posts some interesting things. So I thought we'd have a discussion about, he reckons that the racing point at some circuits were quicker than the Red Bull, and that it wasn't out and out Albon's performances should have been better because the Red Bull car wasn't always there, because Max Verstappen was an outlier because he performed so consistently to the max potential of the car. Not Max, but Max. Yeah. Anyway,
okay, yeah.
We'll discuss that later on.
We'll look at the Abu Dhabi Young Drivers testing, of course.
Of course. We'll include that kind of in the Abu Dhabi section. So, Abu Dhabi, it happened.
It happened and it's done. On to the next section.
Congratulations to Max for winning a race. Anything we can take? Obviously, Red Bull genuinely in the hands of Max were quicker than Mercedes.
Yep.
And comfortably quicker.
Absolutely smashed it.
Is that any hope for the 2021 season?
It depends how much development Mercedes have put into the 2021 car. Obviously, a large chunk of 2020 is transferred over to 2021, but teams can still make improvements, and Mercedes been doing that for half the season, trying to make improvements for the 2021 car. So, whereas Red Bull have been improving throughout the whole season, so can they carry into 2021? Well, we'll wait and see. We'll see if Mercedes are all of a sudden half second quicker again.
Yeah, there are 23 races, and we've got to race 17 before Red Bull actually overtook Mercedes and got. So they're going to have a much smaller gap at the start in their points to have any chance of being competitive and challenging for a driver's title in Max next year. But I guess the main positive is to say that if there was a flicker of hope, that was it.
We got it. Just dominant performance from Max Verstappen. And Albon was there. Only within 1.5 seconds to Lewis at the end.
Yeah, interesting what you think. I think on drive ratings I said, I thought that was probably his best performance of the season. Obviously, he's had other podiums, but a lot of those podiums
he's walked into.
Yeah, were inherited.
Yeah.
And, especially the second one with Checo. So, that's sometimes what podiums are. But that felt like a genuine one. It's the closest he's been to Mercedes.
Yeah, it was a consistent performance, no mistakes. Carried his qualifying form into the race and made the move on Lando early, which is all he had to do. And then stay within the window of Mercedes to stop them trying anything crazy on Max. And
he himself had said there had been like a penny drop moment. Yeah. Everything had just suddenly clicked with that Red Bull. And so on the obviously cusp of it, being looking like at the time this comes out later today, we are actually recording on Wednesday. We did hold out because, it always seems to happen on Wednesday that news gets announced, but fingers crossed it's not announced in the meantime. But it is heavily rumoured that Checo will drive for Red Bull next season. And Albon, well, he will become the reserve driver.
Yeah, reserve and test driver. So he'll stay within the sport, and his future is still open. He could definitely go back into that Red Bull seat if he loses it.
Absolutely. Anything else from McLaren? Strong performances from both drivers to get third in the constructors. I think going into with Daniel Ricciardo next year, which I believe is an upgrade on their driver lineup, with although as well as Carlos has done this year, Daniel Ricciardo is still an upgrade on that. Mercedes engine coming into the McLaren, if they can get it to work within that car and set up, it sets them up nicely for next year to maybe get third again, and then again pushing the 2022 regulations and maybe overtaking someone like Red Bull would be the push for them. But
possibly, yeah.
You know what? They've done, considering how good that Racing Point was this year, they've done bloody well.
Yeah.
To get third.
Yeah. It's just consistency throughout the whole season. Even when they had the third slowest car out of that midfield battle between Racing Point, Renault and McLaren, they were still grabbing a few points here and there. Just that consistency over time and taking advantage of situations like in Monza and in Austria in the first race. They came through.
I would say out of all the teams, out of the three teams of Renault, Racing Point and McLaren, maybe it's because it's been a shorter time. Well, Racing Point have never been a top team.
No.
Renault, it's been a long time since they have been. And McLaren, obviously, it's been a shorter time. So maybe it was easier for them to feel comfortable in those positions, where I feel like Renault and Racing Point were making mistakes, or they didn't seem as comfortable in those positions.
Especially Racing Point.
Especially Racing Point showed their inexperience completely in those positions to kind of capitalise on the strong positions they get. But that team adapt and learn quickly. So I think Racing Point, well, Aston Martin next year, are going to be a serious prospect as well.
If you just look back at some of those decisions that cost Checo a podium, if they just made the right call, like in Imola, left him out, they would be third in the constructors.
Well, he said actually they learnt from the call in Imola, and that's how he got the podium. The race win, because he stayed out.
Yeah.
So they learnt from that. So they are learning, and
if the best scenario was to not make the mistake and already have that knowledge.
Yes, no,
that's not an excuse.
That would definitely.
We learned from it. Oh, that's great.
You still copped it and copped up third. That was Abu Dhabi, really.
Yes.
I can't really think of anything else to say about it. That was one of the worst Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Yeah, it was shocking. Goodbye, Sebastian. No, not goodbye. Goodbye, Sebastian Ferrari version.
Let's take the time actually to go. Okay, so Daniel Kvyat.
Farewells. See ya.
I feel, Daniel Kvyat and Magnussen fall into the same category for me. I think both are very talented drivers.
Yep.
They're both at an age that they really could take the next step in their careers, but for whatever reason, they're not really that rated in the paddock. And this is my issue with sometimes the churn around of young talent into the sport. Obviously, the Mazepin comes from the money aspect of it, but I wouldn't have minded maybe Giovinazzi being dropped in place of a Kvyat or a Magnussen there situation. But obviously one of them has to go to Ferrari with Alfa Romeo. So, yeah, look, I think it's quite sad actually, because I don't really think people have really appreciated them as drivers.
No.
I think they're one of those people that just kind of get brushed away going, no, all right.
Obviously, Kevin Magson's had to deal with that Haas, which has been great sometimes, but majority of the last, 4-5 years? It's been average at best. And then Kvyat obviously was victim of Red Bull's rash decisions and was dropped far too early into his Red Bull reign.
He was so harshly treated, and it's such a shame that he wasn't picked up by anyone outside the Red Bull Academy, and that his only option was to go back with Toro Rosso. And in all honesty, it probably never was going to end, well.
No. Well, they were never going to promote him up to that Red Bull seat, were they?
No.
And that Alpha Tauri team is purely for pushing their academy drivers.
Absolutely. Kvyat should have got another shot when Albon got the shot. That's who they should have picked. But, hey, it's when you're when you're below the elite level of drivers, I think you've just got to be in the right place at the right time. And for both Kevin Magnussen and Daniel Kvyat, they never were in the right place at the right time.
No. But I'm sure they'll be successful outside of sport. Obviously, Kevin Magnussen's confirmed for racing in IMSA, the United States.
Chip Ganassi, great team there.
Should have great success there. Kvyat obviously hasn't confirmed anything because he was always fighting for the AlphaTauri seat right till the final race. But I'm sure we'll find out.
I'm sure he'll go into endurance.
Endurance, yeah.
Yeah, I can see Daniel Kvyat going into the World Endurance Championship, actually. And I think he'd actually do very well there, especially as it's now getting a bit of excitement around the rules and regulations and the hypercar stuff coming in 2022. So, yeah, I could definitely see Daniel doing well in that category of racing. So they'll both go sports cars, but I can definitely also see Kevin Magnussen mixing it with IMSA and IndyCar. Yeah. With the hope of probably going full-time IndyCar.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Albon, I suppose we've got to talk about if this is his last race. You could say he was lucky to get an F1 career in the first place because he was all signed up for Formula E, and if it wasn't for the Daniel Ricciardo move, he wouldn't have ended up in that place. Did reasonable at Toro Rosso, and look, reflection over the season, we'll probably do like a proper season review, but Alex Albon has done okay.
Yeah.
But okay isn't what Red Bull needs.
Exactly.
He's given inexperienced results, and sometimes he's proven that he's good. Obviously, at times he's been really good and he's overtaken in wheel-to-wheel combat. At other times, he hasn't.
Not very good.
But the problem is for Alex Albon, he's been doing those mistakes and learning process in the full spotlight. And no one's done that in the sport recently, other than Lewis Hamilton, from memory.
No.
And Lewis Hamilton is a much better driver than Alex Albon. Let's not beat around the bush on that one.
Albon's not in that elite level where he can jump into a car and immediately be challenging for wins. But
he could have developed
over time,
into something there. But I don't think Red Bull can afford to wait from there. We'll talk about Nick and his theories with the cars there. He's going to release a video this week, I think coming out on Friday, which will be fascinating to watch as always with his videos. But I think it adds an interesting discussion that I wanted to bring up into the podcast.
Yeah. So we'll talk about Albon later.
Yeah, we'll talk about him later.
So and then we've got Sebastian Vettel.
The three switches: Sainz, Ricciardo, and Vettel.
Yeah. Okay.
Who looks best placed out of those three going into the new season?
Sebastian Vettel, probably.
I absolutely think so. And I think his form in the second half of the season, I think the way Ferrari have treated him actually has awoken something in Seb again. I think Seb had almost kind of quietly gone into, he would have been happy to fall into a mentor role for Charles Leclerc. But because Ferrari have basically kicked him into the dirt and made people think that he's an awful driver and, lied about offering the contract, and they basically just had a massive... I think him himself said the love between him and the team had gone.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I think it's awoken a fire in his belly, and some of his performances in the second half of the season, thinking Turkey podium, thinking actually Abu Dhabi, the way that he held off.
Defensive drive, yeah.
Yeah, the train, we made a joke about it, how it ruined a lot of people's races. But actually...
It's not Seb's fault.
that showed a lot of fight from Seb. especially as Charles Leclerc really struggled to do anything in that car.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, I think definitely in the right place. Ricardo...
Got a big cash injection going into Aston Martin. The car, I'm sure there'll be... At Ferrari, like you said, love was lost, whereas at Aston Martin, I know Lance is the chosen one, but I think a lot of attention will be given to Sebastian because they've got a world champion for a reason, and that is to try and make him a world champion again.
Yeah, Ricardo's second best placed. I think him and McLaren will work fantastic together as a team, and he's proven now and learned at Renault to be a real team leader. He kind of had those skills at Red Bull, but he really developed it and drove Renault forward in these 2 years. And I think they maybe do have a little bit of regret between them that they did part ways, but McLaren still could work out as the best option.
Yeah, well, McLaren with that Mercedes engine.
I think that was
nice.
what appealed to Ricciardo the most. And Sainz, unfortunately, is the worst suited, but I think... over the course of the season, it was like last year, was it a fluke season for Carlos Sainz? And at the start of the year, I remember, Carlos was a bit hot and cold, and some people would say things didn't go his way, luck didn't fall. But I still think performance-wise, he wasn't quite on it. But I don't know if that was him mentally trying to go, this is my last season, trying to focus here, and thinking about Ferrari, probably seeing the Ferrari car and it giving him nightmares and not sleeping properly. But the second half of the season, I think he's been very good.
Yeah. And
proven that last year wasn't a fluke, and he is a very good driver on the grid.
Yeah. And Ferrari is like a unknown for next year. Obviously, they had a terrible car, a terrible engine. We don't actually know how good or bad the car was. It's just, it was the imbalance of the engine not fitting the designs of the car. Whereas they got a new engine for next year. Can that bring more balance? Can the Ferrari actually be more competitive next year? And it may not actually be as bad as what it may appear. But yeah, it's definitely third suited because it's the most unknown.
I think they'll definitely be fighting for third in the Constructors next year.
Yeah, if they've nailed the engine. Yeah.
I think they will. Or it could go the other way.
Yeah.
And be really bad.
They may catch up to Racing Point, Aston Martin and McLaren, but they've all made another step up. So
yeah. All right.
There we go.
Those are the
three switches.
Abu Dhabi.
Checo. If this was his final race for, if he is having a year out, he finished incredibly strong, having one of his best seasons. And he's a race winner. No one could take that away from him.
Yeah.
If this last season,
fourth in the Drivers' Championship.
Yep. So there we go. He's confident for a 2022 seat, so I'm sure we'll see him again. But news is very likely for next year as well for Red Bull seat. Bam.
Bam.
On to the young drivers testing.
Yeah, our own drivers testing. Let's go.
Obviously,
we've had day 1.
Yep.
Day 2 is, I think, going on right now.
Oh, maybe.
Probably. But yes, we won't know that. But day 1.
Some highlights. Fernando Alonso was the quickest.
He's a very promising young driver. Very promising young driver, Fernando.
He's grown a beard for a young guy.
He has. Got a good beard for a young
But yeah, he's absolutely smashed it. Beat Ricciardo's and Ocon's times from their qualifying in Abu Dhabi. Not sure if that's partly the conditions or if it was pure Fernando absolutely blitzing it. And then we had Stoffel and Nick de Vries giving their little shot in the test because they're part of the Mercedes Formula E team, so they just, I guess, have a play in our Formula 1 cars. We won't let you have them.
It was crazy that was Nick de Vries' first time in an F1 car.
Yeah.
That was crazy. But
they're not going to make it.
I suppose it was steady progress. Yeah, they're not going to make it. But, it was interesting to see those times.
2022, could they put one of them in with George?
I think the experience showed because Kubica in an Alfa Romeo got 4th, didn't he?
Yes, yeah.
So I think the experience definitely showed in that aspect. And Stoffel was 2nd, yeah?
Stoffel's third. Ooh, I want to say Stoffel's third.
And Nick was second.
I want to say that, but maybe not.
Okay. Well,
I can check. Yuri Phipps got a little chance from the Red Bull. Obviously, he got a bit screwed over this season because he was sent over to Super Formula.
Yep.
Which got cancelled, and so he didn't get to race in F2 or F3. Can't remember which one he was scheduled for.
He didn't have the budget for F2. They pumped it all into Daruvla and Sonoda. And I was shocked that Yuki did it, but fair play to Yuki. He's been one of the standout performances, but we won't come on to that yet.
Nick was second, Stoffels third, Kubica fourth, and Yuki got fifth. Obviously now being confirmed. We'll come on to that later. Schumacher was last in the Haas, but that's because it's a Haas. And the rest were just the rest.
The rest were the rest.
We'll see what happens in day two.
I think the most exciting thing for me is that if you watch the channel,
just say it.
If you watch the channel, you have no doubt that you know that I'm a massive Fernando Alonso fan, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Although it's a young driver's test and it's against some young drivers, I think he's very exciting.
We'll just compare it to the Renault qualifying times.
I think it's really exciting, Fernando being back. And I think he really is going to add value to the Formula One Championship. And heck, would I put money on him finishing P4 in the Championship next year? I think it's going to be close between him and Vettel. I think Ricciardo will need a year to settle at McLaren. And maybe not. Well, actually, it could be a three-way fight. I think for fourth next year in the Championship, because I'm going to expect 1, 2, 3 to be the same in some sort of order of Hamilton, Bottas, and Verstappen. But yeah, fourth could be the real, forget those, title fight.
Yep.
Fight for the top four. Come on, you Gooners. Jeez, can you imagine?
Don't even mention them. Don't
just
bring
the days. The days of remembering when top four was considered an underachievement for us. Look at us now.
Just move on.
Look at us now. But Vettel, Alonso, Ricciardo. How exciting is that going to be? And if you're not excited to see Fernando Alonso back in Formula One...
Sorry. Pause. Vettel, Alonso, Ricciardo.
Yeah.
So Checo's not going to be in the fight for P4 in a Red Bull?
Oh, yeah. If Checo gets hurt, then he'll definitely.
If Checo doesn't get P4 in the Championship, he's lost the Red Bull seat.
Absolutely.
So you've got to put him in there.
Okay, maybe P5. Anyway, if you're not excited to see Fernando Alonso back in F1, I challenge whether you're a true F1 fan. Because you want to see the best drivers on the grid, and Fernando Alonso is one of the best drivers in the world still. So there you go. Have that one. Rip me apart for that one. But if you wanted to see someone like Guan Yu Zhao and that Renault ahead of Fernando Alonso, then I'll put it simply, you're an idiot. Couldn't even get a super license.
On to Jonty's question.
Right, on to Jonty's question. Oh, basically, it was what has been the best Formula One soundtrack? Or what suits Formula One the best?
Unfortunately for me, it's only one. It's The Chain.
It's not unfortunately. It's fortunately. I get hyped by the new one.
Dun, 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 dun.
The other one...
It's my rendition.
But no. Look, I think for our generation growing up, it has to be The Chain.
Yep.
On BBC, it just worked so well.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, The Chain is the best one. End of.
Story.
Discussion done.
Yeah, that's the one. Discussion done. If you are delusional and disagree...
We're going all at you. We're attacking you. Season of goodwill. Screw it. Screw it with the F1, boy. We say what we want. Fernando Alonso. The Chain.
If you disagree, put it down in the comments.
And let the fight begin.
Ding ding.
Knockout!
On to Stephen's rumours and news
and everything.
Well, yeah,
and cranky Yankee thing.
Was that in this section?
Yeah,
or is
it's
that...
kind of like an in section or something.
Okay. The only news really is Yuki Tsunoda announced.
Yuki!
Today, this morning.
It was a badly kept secret.
Yep, although Kvyat wasn't in on it. But yes, Yuki Tsunoda confirmed for that seat. Red Bull maintained the strong Honda relationship, but obviously not just that. Yuki absolutely drove fantastically in F2, Rookie of the Year, and in P3. So if he did that without any Honda links, he deserves an F1 seat just off that for Carlin.
I say Yuki's performance in F2 with Carlin, who historically haven't really done well in the F2 GP2. I can't, I'm going to say off the top of my head, someone will call me out on this if it's wrong, but I'm going to say in the last decade, Carlin have never won a Drivers' Championship in F2/GP2. So Yuki getting P3 in the championship and 1 point behind Callum.
Yep.
I'm going to say that's as good as a championship victory. I think it was that good. He was easily the second best driver in the championship for me, only being topped by Mick with what he achieved and all the pressure that he goes on to. But Yuki had the second most pressure because he was in the Red Bull Driver Academy that is ruthless.
Yep.
So if you don't perform,
and
get out of here.
Set the difficult task of having to achieve P4.
I thought he had absolutely no chance. Start the season, I remember doing the F2 preview, and I just genuinely thought he had absolutely no chance. But he drove the socks off, and in that last weekend, the weekend before in the Sake GP, it didn't go well for him. I think he dropped down to 5th, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then he won and came second in the 2 races in Abu Dhabi. In the Sake GP. Yeah, it was the Bahrain GP where it didn't go... he drove fantastic in the feature race, didn't he?
Qualifying didn't go well.
The sprint race, he had a puncture
yeah.
thanks to Armstrong. But, yeah, well and truly deserves. And he is someone I'm genuinely excited to see in F1 next year.
Yeah.
And with the Alpha Tauri being a competitive car, I'm genuinely excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, it should be great. See another Japanese driver on the grid. Can't go wrong with that.
It's been a while.
Can't
it has
go
been
wrong
a
with
while. Who was the last Japanese driver? Was it Kobayashi? I feel it was Kobayashi.
Yes.
I don't think it was... forgotten. Mind blank. But Kobayashi feels the last one. Obviously, Thingy Bob. I've had a mind blank. Super Formula driver. Oh, God. You know the guys. He had an FP1 in Suzuka, I think, last year. Nagamoto, I think.
Hey.
Yuki Nagamoto.
Hey. But this time, Suzuka aren't just going to be cheering on FP1. They're going to be cheering on their race man, Yuki Tsunoda.
All season.
It's going to be mental. Suzuka.
Yeah, it
Japanese
is.
driver in a Honda-powered car.
I think he's been brilliant.
Any other Red Bull announcement should be soon at the time of this podcast. Nothing yet, but Christian Horner said it will be soon. So we're thinking this week, probably, maybe before Christmas.
That Checo will be announced for Red Bull.
Yes. But that's really the main news of this week.
Right.
Did we cover Lewis Hamilton's the Silverstone pit straight being named after Lewis Hamilton?
No, I don't think we did actually, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a nice nod because often, around the world, circuits and tracks have kind of things named over kind of famous drivers after them. So yeah, that's a really nice thing to go. He's certainly, the most successful British driver of all time.
Yep. And obviously the most successful at Silverstone?
Yep.
Because he overtook, was it Mansell?
Yeah, he overtook Mansell.
So yeah, he's now the most successful there and got the pit straight named after him. with the wing building.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, fantastic for Lewis
Very
Hamilton.
cool. Very cool indeed.
So we now move on to. Thought I was going to sneeze. Might sneeze. Don't know. Could still sneeze. We now move on to that discussion because it's an interesting one. Red Bull and Racing Point. Now, obviously, the Racing Point was a copy of the Mercedes. Now, it is impossible to copy a car like for like. There are so many things, especially underneath the cars, that there is just no way Racing Point would have been able to copy.
Mm.
But aerodynamically, as a philosophy, they followed a similar pattern. And they aren't copying the W11 for the 2021 season. They're just adapting this version of the car.
It's now their car that they are.
Yeah, exactly. So that will pass over any rumours going into next season. We already discussed that they are a team that looked inexperienced. They didn't feel comfortable at that top. They made mistakes.
Decisions were made.
Yeah, and they didn't secure third in the constructors, but they got fourth. So, Red Bull, Max, I think, had an insane season. I think he had 5 DNFs, 2 race wins, and 11 podiums, which was exactly the same as Valtteri Bottas. So that's an incredible season. Max has driven out of his skin, and if you don't think he was one of the drivers of the season, we'll do another attack. Sort yourselves out! Take a look in the mirror! Quality! He's quality! The other stuff about Max is questionable, but his driving, no. Unbelievable. He really has gone up another gear, I think, even this season. And it's disappointing that Red Bull didn't give him a championship car because it would have been fascinating to see
maybe next year
versus Lewis. Potentially, fingers crossed, let's hope, guys, that it is a good sign for 2021, that race win in Abu Dhabi. Racing Point, Albon, though, consistently was in the mix of being beaten by Renault's, Racing Points and McLaren's.
Yep.
Now, what's your thought? Do you think it is that the Red Bull wasn't as good as what Max made it look, and it was closer to that midfield, and it actually was more in that midfield pack, and Albon's inexperience just meant that he couldn't consistently finish ahead of them? Or, right, because logically in my head, as well as Max has performed, I don't think there's that much of a difference in teammates. And if there is that much of a difference in teammates, the question still is Albon good enough? But Racing Point, the frustrating thing is, on the circuits that Racing Point were quick, I think either Max or Checo didn't finish, who were the ones getting the best out of those cars. Yeah. So it's really hard to go, where were they in it? I think Cranky was making people think, it isn't as clear as day that Red Bull was the second best car on the grid and the Racing Point was the third. That they were closer than what things. I don't know. Logically, to me, I don't think even Racing Point could have made the gap up and Red Bull fall that far. There you go. I think over the course of a season, the Red Bull was definitely a second best car. Even looking at data, I don't see how you could just see a performance of one driver was so consistently that much better.
If the car was not the second quickest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you compare Max and Checo, Max always got the better of Checo. I know Checo's not on the same level as Max, but he's still in that great tier of drivers.
But the closest car all season to the Red Bull of Max Verstappen in a race situation, to me, was Ricciardo in Spa.
Spa, yeah. We was hunting him down at the end.
And we're not sure whether Max was coasting just because it was a boring race in P3 and he was just getting the car home. But that was the closest we saw anyone across the season. So I think, I don't know, it's an interesting one. And that's why I brought it up, because I think it's an interesting debate to have, and it'll be interesting debate to have in the comments. And I know Nick will go well. I think he's looking at whether Checo should get the Red Bull seat, and it'll be interesting to see his thoughts on that. In my view, logically, you have an experienced guy like Checo, he will perform better than Albon, and even if the Red Bull car is not as quick as what some may think, he will still get better performances, therefore help Red Bull more than what Albon has done.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my view on it. And because it was consistently quicker, Max was consistently quicker than everyone, and by large margins. We're not talking about
5 seconds, 10 seconds, it was more 15, 20 seconds.
If not 30, 40, even going up to a minute at times. You know, there was a huge gap in performance between there. So I don't think, and logically, I cannot get behind the theory, I've always said it, that the second car has a massive deficit to the first car with Red Bull's budget. Logically, it does not make sense for them to shoot themselves in the foot and to go, screw the constructors, we'll just have one car, we've got second car because we have to.
Yeah.
We'll use that to kind of run things.
The money is in the constructors, not the drivers. So why would a team prioritise driver over constructors? Absolutely.
Has the car been difficult to drive and handle at times? Absolutely. I think the Racing Point was probably the easier car to drive, I would say. But over the course, the Red Bull definitely felt like the quicker one for me. But yeah, that's something to leave you an interesting thought on the comment of the podcast today. So yeah, get involved in the comments below on everything we've discussed today. Obviously, farewell again to Kvyat Magnussen and potentially Albon. It's been nice seeing them all contribute something to F1, all in a unique way. I think we'll miss Kvyat and Magnussen more, but Albon, you can maybe argue we haven't had enough of a chance to really see what he could develop into.
Very nice guy. Probably find success in other series.
Absolutely.
Or make a return in F1 later.
Absolutely.
There we go.
But for now, that's it from us. So if you're new around here or haven't done so already, Stephen, what can they do?
You can like, subscribe and ding that bell.
Ding it! So you F1 fans, keep racing!